I'm a huge fan of Michael Saylor, and I love what Strategy is doing as a company. I think they're making a great financial decision by borrowing money from their legacy financial system, by creating new products, let's say new shares, new debt, and selling them and monetizing them and turning that into Bitcoin. I think that's great. I've even made a playlist of videos talking about how I think, for example, Michael Saylor will become a trillionaire. I've also talked about how I like MicroStrategy over Bitcoin ETFs and other Bitcoin proxies. You can go through that later on. I'm not going to talk about that in this video. What I'm going to talk about in this video is more about the topic that I discussed in this one here. So buy Bitcoin to save, buy MicroStrategy to invest. I think a lot of people have completely lost the plot with Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. I think a lot of people are thinking that because they can outperform Bitcoin with MicroStrategy, they should put 100% of their portfolio into MicroStrategy. They're buying as many shares as they can. They're selling their Bitcoin to buy MicroStrategy. They're thinking that if they buy MicroStrategy, they're getting direct exposure to Bitcoin. But what they're missing out on here is that you don't get all of the benefits of holding Bitcoin when you buy MicroStrategy. When you buy MicroStrategy stock, you're not getting a bearer asset. You're getting an asset that's held by a custodian. It's essentially trapped with your custodian. Whoever you're buying it from, the brokerage, it's trapped. You can't do anything with that stock. If something were to happen to you, let's say you got kicked out of the country, that asset is basically trapped with a custodian, a brokerage, a financial institution. And if worst comes to worst, you're not going to be able to get that asset out of that financial institution and use it to maybe sustain your lifestyle if you need to. When you buy Bitcoin, what you're getting is a bearer asset. So a bearer asset is a financial instrument where ownership is determined by physical possession. So if you own the private keys to Bitcoin, then you own that Bitcoin. You have the ability to move it around. Whoever has the private keys has ownership of that Bitcoin. They can move it wherever they want to. In the current financial system, we don't rely on bearer assets. We have stocks, we have real estate. We don't even really have the ownership of our house. The house is basically registered with the bank. They own all the paperwork. We are just living there. We have our assets registered. If the government wants to come after us, if somebody wants to come after us, they easily can. Stocks are also not a bearer asset because you don't have physical custody of the stock. You don't really have physical custody of the company. If your government forces the company not to give you any share of your ownership in that company, then that's how it is. If they can block your brokerage from letting you be able to access your stocks, then they will. So a bearer asset is something you have to have physical possession of, while a registered asset is something you keep with a custodian, let's say a bank or a brokerage account. And let's just use Google to give us a specific definition of registered versus bearer. Unlike normal registered accounts, no record is kept of who owns bearer instruments or of transactions involving transfer of ownership, enabling the owner as well as the purchaser to deal with the property anonymously. So with Bitcoin, you can send and receive transactions without a custodian, without, let's say, an exchange. You can send Bitcoin directly to somebody else's wallet without having to get permission. You don't have to ask JP Morgan. You don't have to ask Schwab, your TD Ameritrade, whatever brokerage you're with. You don't have to ask any of them to allow you to move your wealth with Bitcoin. All that Bitcoin is a digital record that's held by thousands of computers around the world. This is called a blockchain explorer. This records all of the transactions that are happening on the Bitcoin ledger. The Bitcoin ledger is just a record of all the transactions that are happening between people who want to send Bitcoin and others who want to receive Bitcoin. So all that Bitcoin is an entry on this ledger. We can see here that Bitcoin was moved from this address to this address. This transaction would not have happened if the person sending the Bitcoin didn't have enough Bitcoin to pay the fees. Bitcoin specifically has that utility where you can't use the network without having Bitcoin. So if you have Bitcoin, you have the option to move it wherever you want to. You can send it, you can receive Bitcoin to any address anywhere in the world. You don't have to get permission from anyone. All you have to do is put a transaction on the blockchain using your wallet, using the software that comes with your wallet. For example, if you have Trezor or Cold Card, maybe you want to use Sparrow to move your Bitcoin from one place to another. You don't have to get permission. All you have to do is have an internet connection. You can use any internet connection in the world. You can transfer Bitcoin from one wallet to another using software that's open source. And the best thing here is that you don't have to go through any financial institutions to transfer your wealth. There's no other asset that you can do this with. You can transfer your wealth without trusted third parties. So back to the main point of this video here. MicroStrategy investors I think are starting to lose the plot. I'm a MicroStrategy investor, but I'm not so die hard that I put all of my portfolio into MicroStrategy. That was the point of this video here. Buy Bitcoin to save, buy MicroStrategy to invest. When you buy MicroStrategy, you're not buying Bitcoin, you're not getting all of those benefits that come with owning Bitcoin. If you have MicroStrategy stock, your government can still stop you from owning your asset. Even if you do it for the cash flow with MicroStrategy, the yield one MSTY, you won't have Bitcoin. You'll have dollars. So if you sell those assets, if you sell those stocks, the Strife, the Strike, whatever stocks MicroStrategy is issuing, if you buy those and you sell them, you're not getting Bitcoin in exchange. You don't have access to the Bitcoin of the company. All you get are the dollars that the market is willing to pay you for that stock. So you have to remember, when you own MicroStrategy, when you own these stocks, you don't get access to Bitcoin. The Bitcoin that they have is theirs. They can run away with it. They can do whatever they want with it. You don't get access to that Bitcoin. All you get is a share of the profits that the company makes. So let's say the Bitcoin that MicroStrategy holds increases in value by 10x. You get a share of the profit that the company makes. And because MicroStrategy doesn't give out dividends, you'd have to sell your stock into the market and somebody in the market would have to buy it from you. So think about it. With Bitcoin alone, you can buy Bitcoin, you can put it in your own wallet and you can hold it without anybody knowing. On the other hand, with MicroStrategy, you have to hold it with a brokerage. Taking self custody of stocks is nearly impossible. You have to get a certificate made, you have to pay them the fees. About 5 years ago, the fee was $300, 300 Canadian dollars. So I don't know what the fee would be today. Maybe it's gone up, but you have to have your share certificates made so you can take self custody. And think about how difficult that would be if you have one share of MicroStrategy. You'd be paying the value of the stock to take self custody. So with Bitcoin, you can move it whenever you want to. You can move it wherever you want to. You don't have to get permission from anyone. Nobody can stop you from using your Bitcoin. Nobody can stop you from being able to access your wallets. On the other hand, with MicroStrategy, they can. So MicroStrategy owns their Bitcoin and they have it with Coinbase. We can see this post from Richard here that goes through some of the very important questions that people have about MicroStrategy. For example, MicroStrategy owns paper Bitcoin IOUs. We're all aware MSTR Bitcoin is held with third-party custodians. This gets criticized by many Bitcoin maxis and MSTR bears, and I've seen a lot of fear and uncertainty around their custody strategy. MSTR uses US-based institutional grade custodians. Both Coinbase and Fidelity have been publicly named. However, there could be others we don't know yet. Saylor has been vocal about using multiple custodians with multiple wallets to diversify the custodial risk. So while they're putting this publicly, they're telling us that this is what they're doing. Are you willing to just trust them? Do you know that this is the case? Do you know that they even know what they're doing? Maybe they do. Maybe they are completely doing everything right. But how do you verify that? How do you know that they're not going to run away with your Bitcoin? How do you know that they can't collude and take all the Bitcoin? How do you know that Coinbase can't take all the Bitcoin? All of this is in the back end. Maybe this is for security, of course, but we have no idea if that Bitcoin even exists. I think that MicroStrategy is in the capital raise phase of its growth as a company. And I think that it's going to be able to create a lot of wealth in the future. But I don't know if that future is going to happen. What if in the meantime, the US government confiscates all of MicroStrategy's Bitcoin? How do you know that that's not going to happen? How do you know that there's not going to be some kind of exploit at Coinbase where half their Bitcoin gets taken? How do you know that Fidelity won't go down? How do you know that Saylor is not a bad actor? I'm not saying he is, but how do you know that he's not? Everybody thought that Sam Bankman-Fried was a great guy. People thought that Bernie Madoff was a great guy. All of his friends and family probably said that he was a great person. But it turned out that he wasn't so great. I'm not saying that Saylor is not a great person. It's nothing like that. But there's no way to verify what his intentions are with this Bitcoin. So if 100% of your wealth is put into MicroStrategy and then MicroStrategy collapses, what are you left with? If MicroStrategy's Bitcoin is confiscated, what are you left with? This is what you have to ask yourself before you put all of your money into MSTU, MSTY, the derivatives, and MicroStrategy's stock, MSTR. Bitcoin is a savings account. MicroStrategy is an investment. I've actually seen people go as far as to say that MicroStrategy is better than Bitcoin. Even Michael Saylor doesn't agree with that. Even he was saying before that you should buy Bitcoin before you buy MicroStrategy. Bitcoin in cold storage gives you self-sovereignty, while MicroStrategy stock does not. MicroStrategy stock is trapped with a brokerage. MicroStrategy stock is a registered asset. Governments know that you own it. Your government can freeze your brokerage account. They can stop you from ever being able to access your wealth. This is why Bitcoin in self custody is completely different from MicroStrategy, the stock. If you own MicroStrategy because you just want more fiat currency, then that's perfectly fine. But you have to remember that you could lose everything. MicroStrategy may outperform Bitcoin in the short term, but in the long term, what if it doesn't? There are way too many risks present with MicroStrategy for you to put all of your wealth into the stock. I'm not saying that the stock is bad. I'm not saying that the stock will underperform. It's none of that. All I'm saying is that if you want long-term stability and certainty, most of your wealth should be in Bitcoin in cold storage. For example, maybe the right allocation would be 90% to Bitcoin in cold storage versus 10% to MicroStrategy. Don't sell your freedom, your self-sovereign asset for cash flow. I've seen people selling 5 Bitcoin, 10 Bitcoin to buy MSTY because they want cash flows. Most people will tell you that they don't want to sell the asset, but again, they're selling their Bitcoin to buy this second, third, fourth level derivative that has nothing to do with MicroStrategy. The company that's issuing it has nothing to do with MicroStrategy, has nothing to do with Bitcoin. They're just buying this product that this company created out of nothing. Of course, they're getting cash flows, they're getting this yield. It's great, something like 2, 3, 4% per month, but there are risks involved, and most people can't explain those risks. I don't personally know them entirely, but one of the risks is that if you sell covered calls, you are selling your upside. So let's say Bitcoin 10x's overnight. Something happens where there's some kind of supply shock. Let's say China comes in, buys every single Bitcoin on every single exchange. Then the US government right away starts buying and getting to their million Bitcoin. Then Russia starts hitting it. What happens to the price of Bitcoin and what happens to MicroStrategy? What happens to your MSTY? Your Bitcoin is obviously going to 10x. If you have Bitcoin in cold storage, you still have that Bitcoin. You can sell the Bitcoin into the market if you want to, if that's what you want to do. You can sell it into the market. You can buy whatever you want with it, but you have full control over it. That's the main point. It doesn't matter what the value is. If you have Bitcoin in cold storage, you have that Bitcoin in cold storage. Let's say you have zero point 0.1 Bitcoin in cold storage. Whether the price 10x's, 100x's, a million x's from here, you still have zero point 0.1 Bitcoin. With MicroStrategy, they have something like 550,000 Bitcoin. How do you know that at 100x, some bad actor isn't going to come in and steal some of MicroStrategy's Bitcoin? How do you know that that Bitcoin even exists in the first place? With MSTY, of course, you're getting that cash flow every single month. But if MicroStrategy stock goes up too much, you're going to lose out on your position. Because you don't have direct access to MicroStrategy stock and the asset that you're buying takes advantage of the volatility in the market. They sell covered calls, they sell calls into the market, they're selling the upside. Your MSTY stock won't keep up. So with MSTY, you may get that cash flow, but number one, your government could confiscate it. Number two, the company that's issuing it could go bankrupt. And number three, if Bitcoin's price goes up too fast, maybe you don't get the reward that's associated with MicroStrategy's stock going up in price. So because you bought MSTY, you get the cash flows, but you lose out on that massive upside. In the short term, you might outperform Bitcoin, but in the long term, there are too many risks. I don't think it's worth putting the majority of your portfolio in any of these assets. The point of Bitcoin is to be a bearer asset. The reason why we own Bitcoin is because it's a bearer asset, because you have full control of your asset. You can do whatever you want with it. You can hold it with an exchange. You can hold it in collaborative custody. You can put it with a custodian. But with MicroStrategy, you have no choice. You just hold that Bitcoin with MicroStrategy's custodians. You don't even get to choose who the custodians are. So the warning here, don't put all of your wealth into MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy could still go to zero. Even if Bitcoin goes up massively from here, MicroStrategy could still fail. MicroStrategy is a company, it has an executive team, it has a board of directors. All of that exists. So it's possible for MicroStrategy to fail, to make the wrong decisions. On the other hand, Bitcoin is just a protocol. There are no decisions involved. There are certain rules that have to be followed. If you follow those rules, you can use the network, you can send transactions, you can receive transactions. If you don't follow those rules, you can't use Bitcoin. So before you put 100% of your wealth into MicroStrategy, think of all the risks involved. I think it's important to have the majority of your wealth in Bitcoin and cold storage because you have certainty, you have stability, you know exactly how much Bitcoin you own. On the other hand, with MicroStrategy, you have no idea if the Bitcoin exists. And even if it does, it's not yours. It could be confiscated at any moment. So think of the risks before you make these decisions. I would say anything above 10% allocated to any kind of derivative is way too much. But do what you need to. Maybe you've invested a lot more time than me into studying MicroStrategy. If you think that MicroStrategy is going to outperform Bitcoin massively over the next few years, then that's up to you. Go ahead and put a lot of your wealth into it. I can't stop you from doing that. I just think it's important that you know the risks that are associated with the investments that you make. Remember that MicroStrategy is an investment while Bitcoin is a savings account. Most of your wealth should go into your savings account. Your investment is just a way to boost your savings. Putting all of your wealth into a company like MicroStrategy is extremely risky compared to buying Bitcoin. And for all you know, you could end up with nothing.